happen. But what is happening right now, what's happening right now is that the people who don't want to change the system, and there are a couple of big ones out there, which you might have been able to figure out, insurance companies, right, and pharmaceutical companies do not want a change. They want it to stay the same. And they're trying to confuse the people by throwing up one thing to be afraid of, and another thing to be afraid of, and another thing to be afraid of. But what's happening is that we're getting everybody into the house. And then the first thing that's going to happen almost immediately is that insurance companies will begin to be reformed by a provision that says you can't exclude anybody for a previous condition. Now, once you do that, everybody's in and everybody stays in. You can't throw anybody out, which is the way they've always operated. They've always said, well, we'll take all these people and then throw out the ones that cost anything or are going to be a problem. But what we're designing is something where everybody's going to be in and you can't be excluded for a previous condition. And then we're going to have to start figuring out a number of other details. Some of the things that were in the House bill I did not like. I see these signs out here about abortion, and you can wave them around. I hated that. But I'm not convinced it's going to be in the final bill when it comes away from the conference table, because the Senate bill doesn't have it in it. So that's one of those issues we're going to argue about. But in the end, what's happening today is the biggest social change in our country in 75 years. It hasn't been since 1935 that we had a change like this. In 1935, we got unemployment insurance, we got welfare, we got Social Security, we got money for foster kids. It was what happened in the 1935 after the crash. We are in a crash today, and we're not done with it. It's not going to be gone in 3 months. I don't care what kind of baloney. You can look at profits of stocks are up and all this stuff, and the stock market's going up. But if you look at employment is not coming back. And it's not going to come back with the kind of benefits that we've had before, which makes this effort even more important than ever before in our history. Because we're not going back to a situation where everybody's going to suddenly pop up and have their own benefits and not have to worry about the next guy. You and I are in this together. And it ought to include people who are here legally but not yet citizens. There is no excuse for leaving out documented people who are on their way to citizenship in this country. It is unfair, they pay taxes, and they ought to be a part of what happens. So there are a lot of issues that are not yet resolved in this thing, but just keep in mind, we're all in, and the insurance companies can't throw anybody out. That is a huge step forward, and we'll finish the job as we get down the road. We're going to get as much of it done as we can in the conference committee. I gave a letter to the speaker yesterday with 4 or 5 issues that I thought ought to be absolutely in the final bill, and a number of people are going up there with their letters and saying this ought to be in. She's going to have to figure out how much of that she can get in this time. But just because we don't get it now doesn't mean we're not going to get it. If you think about Medicare, Medicare has been amended every single year since 1965. You can never design something perfectly, but you can put the framework up, and once you got the framework, then you can continue to change it and make it work. And that's what we're up to. It's good to see you out here, because people in Washington need to know that in Seattle they'll even come out when it's 20 degrees, right? I mean, we think this is a cold day. But I really am pleased to see you all here. I'll be back in Washington on Monday working at my thing. You keep doing your thing. Thank you very much.